Doctor Who continues today. And this is one episode that I think a lot of people aren't going to like. But I have to be said, I think this is probably one of the episodes that I think I will like, while others probably won't. Because I think this is quite possibly the best, at least of this season. And probably tops all of Series 11. And here's the thing, is because this is the first episode that I think has dealt with a political issue that I think is important to society in a way that a lot of other political issues that Doctor Who has dealt with isn't, because it's something that hits home to literally everyone. Because we all feel this. A lot of issues in Doctor Who often only affect like one section of society, but this issue I think affects everyone. Mental health in the 21st century has become a big deal, because for the first time I think everyone is starting to realise how important it is. I think a lot of people are going to find this boring, which my father remarked after watching this episode, but I think it's like Demons of the Punjab. I think it's very it has a very important message for everyone, and also I think it's one that a lot of, particularly in recent years, an issue that has been ignored. And I think it's very brave for Doctor Who to come out and talk about this, because it is something that literally everyone struggles with. Everyone struggles with nightmares, everyone struggles with bullying, everyone struggles with how people think about each other. And I think it's one of the probably best and well dealt episodes that's dealt with any issue, like any kind of political, I'm not going to say political issue, because I don't think it is a political issue. I think it's a human issue. And in that way, it also presents by far the most companion-centric episode of the series. I don't think we'll get a Dr. Light episode this season. I think this is the closest we're going to get to a Dr. Light episode. And for the first time, I think every companion properly contributes something that is actually memorable. There have been episodes where companions have contributed everything, and you can say, oh yeah, that character did this and that character did that, but never before has it been so memorable, I think. Which is the case in this episode, where I think, partially because it isn't mainly written by Chris Chibnall. I know a lot of it has been written by Chris Chibnall, but not all of it has been. But it's interesting to me that Chris Chibnall didn't write this episode. But I think he might have had an outline or something, because this episode is very much a case of you get character development, and you get character development, and you get character development, and you all get character development. And I think it's probably very brave for that, which is why a lot of this review is probably going to be focused on talking about the companions. There will be spoilers in this review. I suspect one to do with Graham will probably get out on the internet very quickly. So be wary of that. But that's just my non-spoiler thoughts about this episode. But yeah, I think it's probably one of the best dealt episodes of the series so far. But let's get into the thoughts of the actual episode. So let's talk about the companions first, because they obviously have the most memorable scenes of this episode. I'm going to talk about Graham first, because something happened and it took me by surprise. I was very happy because I love the character that turns up. Graham, once again, is in the his GP's office, I guess, having a checkup to do with his cancer, but it turns out that Grace is there, and you have no idea how I was literally like got shivers. It was an incredibly chilling performance, because they all get their own dreams, like little individual dreams about what happened, about what they fear and what is bothering them. And Graham's is obviously his cancer, so he's back and is on the sort of GP's, like, I can't remember what the word for it is, like a bed type thing, the GP's sort of thing where you do the checkup. He's having his blood tested. He's got an IV, and there you go, that's the word. And Brace is there instead of his GP, and it's so chilling because the performance, these two actors, I think Graham and Grace were probably the two best things about Series 11. So it's nice to see that come back. I really like the fact that Grace haunts Graham. I think it's a great sort of story for him, and I think it kind of got left behind in previous episodes. It hasn't been focused on for a while. I think this is the first time where Grace has actually been like name mentioned or even seen in series 12. I think every character, I think this is very much setting up for the companions to leave. I want to say at the end of the series, but I believe there's been reports that they were filming the special, which we don't know when it's going to air, but we do know that the Daleks are in it. So I find it unlikely that they will introduce a new companion in the special, particularly if it is the Daleks, because I feel like they'd want the companions for that, but I do think they're setting up that the companions will leave. We obviously know that Tosin Cole and Mandip Gill have got roles lined up for the next year, partially probably because Doctor Who has dished them probably a lot of goodwill from other producers, but we do know that Ryan and Yaz are unlikely to come into season 13. Graham, to be fair, they bring back him mentioning cancer as if it's like a sort of subtext in the series. So it got mentioned in the first episode. It keeps on getting the odd remark. It did in series 11 as well. So I mean, it could just be that it's just referenced, but I do think that Graham was probably going to have this thing with cancer returning at some point. In fact, and then let's talk about Ryan next, because I have to be said, the Doctor doesn't really do much this episode. I think it's very much the companions who drive this episode home. But Ryan returns home to see his friend Tibbo. I thought it was going to be Tybo, to nod to the Jadoon Tybo, but no, it was actually Tibbo, which I was quite happy, because I always thought it'd be Tybo, but I was always kind of hoping it'd be Tibbo, because it sounds funnier. I think it's a great name, Tibbo, but yeah, he returns home to see his friend Tibbo. He's been disturbed by his nightmares. I think Tibbo is actually a really nice companion. I think it's nice to see the companions and the friends of the companions friends and family again. Particularly Graham, he sees his friends from the bus shelter, they're clearly ex-bus drivers. Yaz sees our sister Sonia, and Ryan sees Tibbo from Spyfall Part 1. Obviously, it's revealed that he has depression, which again, I think is something Doctor Who's never properly dealt with, but I think it's been a major theme throughout Series 11 and 12. I think, particularly Graham, we all thought Graham and Ryan were running away from the fact that Grace had died and running away from their grief. But in this episode, I think they finally confront their fears, particularly Tibbo. I think he has a great scene at the end where he gets help from a group. He's also revealed that Yaz had at some point depression. They're all depressed, the companions, which is a bit of an I said this with Orphan 55, it's kind of a bit of a bleak way to end a Sunday, particularly as Monday is the day that everyone goes back to school or work or whatever. But I think it's nice that they all got their little moments, those little dreams. I like the cinematography of all the different dreams. The Doctor gets a dream, and it ends up being about the Timeless Child, which is interesting. I was expecting the Master. I was kind of disappointed the Master didn't turn up, but I feel like that might be a bit obvious. But they basically reused the same footage from Spyfall Part 2 of the clearly child. I think that's the Ruth Doctor, not going to lie. If she's the first Doctor, then obviously the first incarnation of the Doctor, then obviously she was born a child and then she grew up, which means that could be the Ruth Doctor, but as a child. So yeah. But Yaz, my God, that scene at the end with her and the police officer, I got chills. It was so dramatic, and it's really well written. I think all the dream bits were well written. There are a couple of things that I don't think were well written, but we'll get to that in a minute. But I think all the companions and their friends and their family very much led this episode. I think they very much gave the episode what it needed, I think. Yeah. Talk about Ian Gelder's character. Ian Gelder plays Zelen. He's the same actor who played the Remnants in the Ghost Monument. A lot of people thought, oh, is it going to have some kind of link? No, but to be fair though, he mentions the Timeless Child as a remnant, and I think he's supposed to be some kind of celestial, so he could take many forms, but maybe he's speaking through the remnants, I don't know. But I think he gave a good performance. It's just a shame that he had to look absolutely ridiculous. Flaunting around looking like not Darth Vader, Lord Voldemort. It did seem a bit stupid. I think the concept is very much something Doctor Who's done before with the nightmares and stuff. I don't think they've done it and portrayed it as well as this. I think they did it differently. I don't know if I would say as well, but this is a very different, unique, well thought out way of using the nightmares, controlling people's mental health problems and issues and thoughts about each other and stuff. But I think the whole subplot with him and the Celestials, I don't think it works. I think they should have just focused on all the companions and their feelings. And I think I liked the ending of the episode. Not the bit where they defeat the Celestials. The Toymaker got mentioned, by the way. I liked the fact that Toymaker was so like, yes! I was like, yes! The Toymaker got referenced. Now can he come back, please? Because I really want the Toymaker to come back. Or at least animate the Celestial Toymaker, goddammit. I have to say, though, the Celestial beings with the fingers, there are a lot of weird sexual connotations you could make of this episode. I remember on the pictures of Jodie in the handcuffs that they were all put in, and then you get the ear put in. There's a lot of weird sexual connotations you could make from this episode. Like how, in a way, he's basically... I'm not going to say it, but I'm sure you can all figure it out from the fact that their fingers, god damn it, their freaking fingers. I'm just like... That idea was a bit weird. I think the Nightmare Man with the lightning is a much better... I think that was probably been better because I don't like the execution of the weird fingers. I think they're a bit odd and perhaps have weird connotations that aren't appropriate for children. It's just a very weird episode. I think the bits on the spaceship and the bit with the Celestials, basically any time when they're not focusing on the companions and their dreams is probably where this episode goes wrong. It's such a shame because when they're talking about the issues and the feelings they're all having as a group, that's when the episode excels, and that's when it gives me chills, and that's when it makes me feel emotions. But then the bits on the spaceship with all the different with the different celestial beings, and the story about planets, and the animated segment, there was a lot of chat about the animated segment, and I just don't think it really worked. I didn't really need an explanation of the Celestials. And the reason why the Nightmare Man, which is the episode of the Sarah Jane Adventure, which I think really does this concept justice, it does it for different reasons though, but it does also have connotations of Luke's struggling to cope with the idea of leaving the gang behind. But I think this deals with all I think it's nice, I think particularly because we haven't had that character development for companions, but I do think that this character was a bit odd and maybe just a bit weird, and I think it would have been better if they had done something like the Nightmare Man just sort of turning up in people's rooms and not explaining it, because I think when they started to explain it, it just went horribly wrong and just didn't work for me. That's the aspect of the episode I'd liked the least. Okay, so let's talk about the guest cast. The episode starts in Aleppo, in ancient Aleppo, which is obviously Syria, capital of Syria, I believe. I liked this bit. I think it was a nice way to get the Doctor into what was going on. I didn't like the fact that the cold opener was back for this episode because I don't think it worked. I actually thought, because they started the episode by the only real connection to this title, really, which is a shame, because I think it's an interesting question. But the question of this episode is, can you hear me? And they start the episode by saying, can you hear me? And then they go into this bit on the sort of I can't decide the words for it. I guess, is it a temple? It was very much a bit about mental health and mental well-being. But she's obviously struggling to cope with the fear of her monsters, which are attacking all the other people in the I'm gonna call it a sanctum, because I think sanctum is a good word. In the sanctum, but she basically, the guy creates the monster. I think it's quite good. It looked like a Pokemon. I thought it looked like one of the Pokemon, which I thought was quite funny. But I think I don't like the cold opener. I think it's just a bit, the way it ends leading into the credits, a bit anticlimactic. What I thought would have been really cool if they'd opened it by saying, can you hear me, in that mysterious sort of ghostly way, and then done the credits. I think that would have been really good. But I actually, while I don't think while Can You Hear Me is never said again, I think Can You Hear Me is a great title for the episode, because I think a lot of people, I think particularly with its strong focuses on mental health, I think it describes the episode in a very nice nutshell, and describes a lot of people's feelings when they feel like no one can hear them. They feel isolated and alone, and I think that ties just a great thing, because it's like people are calling out, trying to be heard, which I think this episode very much reflects in its themes. So to open it by saying, can you hear me, or like you could have millions of voices saying, can you hear me, like reflecting the fact that we all feel this, like everyone gets lonely sometimes, everyone feels those emotions. I think it would be great if you'd opened it like that, then have the titles. I just don't have a cold opener. I think out of all the episodes so far, I think it's one of the few episodes that probably didn't need the cold opener. I didn't think Spyfall really needed the cold opener. I'm curious to know why some episodes they have the cold opener and some episodes they don't. I kind of get why they did it in Spyfall Part 1, because it's the opening of the episode. I believe season 25 of Classic Era started with the Dalek ship looming, and then you had the titles, and then every other episode, because it was Classic Who, had the titles first. I'm wondering why Chris Chibnall was thinking that. I think we'll definitely get one before the finale, or part one of the finale. I think we'll definitely get one then, but it's interesting to see which episodes get cold openers and which ones don't. Okay. Conclude. I think out of all the episodes this season, a lot of episodes from the Chibnall era in particular feel like filler episodes. But this is a filler episode that feels like a filler episode, I'll give it that, but it's a good filler episode. We haven't had, I think a lot of the people why a lot of Series 11 wasn't really well perceived is because every episode felt very enclosed and not connected to it. But this episode manages to be a filler episode but still connected to the greater lives of the characters, something that you would normally see in the Russell T Davies era, something that sort of got left behind in the Stephen Moffat era. And I really liked the fact that they brought back Sonia, and I think it's nice that we see these characters have relationships outside the TARDIS, because a lot of the time it feels like the Doctor just has them there to show off. I don't think she really connects with her companions in the way that every other Doctor has. It's nice to see the companions sort of develop outside their box, because a lot of the time I think we just sort of forget that the companions have lives outside of being just there to ask questions on stuff, which has been a problem with the Chibnall era for me, is that they just don't change, they just don't develop, which is why I think this episode is probably good, because it helps us to learn more about these characters. We learn what Yaz's secret is. Yaz's secret, they kind of built that up to be bigger than it was, if I'm honest. I was expecting maybe, a lot of people were expecting her to be a lesbian or bisexual, which didn't turn out to be true. I think it could have worked. I think it would make sense, because it's kind of, because I thought maybe the reason why Yaz didn't get much to do is because I think kind of explains why Yaz doesn't get much to do, actually, is because I think she is still quite self-conscious and shy, much like she is in Like, in every other episode, it's like you can't notice her. And I think that's actually kind of works with this idea that she was, perhaps, felt depressed or lonely or isolated, from the rest of her family or from school or whatever. I think it's nice, that police officer, though. She was really nice. But I guess it kind of makes sense. I hope that this means that, because she's sort of acknowledged that maybe she'll get something more to do. At least in the next 3 episodes. Ryan and Yaz have a talk at the end of the episode. They say, is this our lives now, Yaz? Wandering with the doctor. Which very much... I think that Ryan will leave. And I think Yaz might leave. Although, to be honest, out of all of them, I think if I was to place bets, I would say Graham will die. Graham will die because I think everyone's been thinking that. And Graham gets some amazing acting. The cinematography, I loved the sort of smoke. It sort of made it look like The Dream. I really like that. I really want to say give this a 9 or a 10. But the thing is, I just think the whole thing with the spaceship and the Celestials sort of drags on and takes away from the rest of the episode. So I think, while I think it is one of the best ones of the Chibnall era, and definitely the best of Series 12, I am going to give it 8 out of 10. But yeah, I did like this episode. Yeah, it's an important episode. It's a great episode. I think it was a very good decision on the BBC's part to make it. I think it's something that everyone finds hard to talk about. So to go and write an episode of TV about it is quite commendable to the writer. The director just does a great job of this episode. And I think all the sets and the designs are all great. The moment with the dregs as well, that was pretty climactic. I think the dregs have greater symbolism to Ryan and the companions. So I think this episode was overall very good. Next week, the haunting of Villa Diotti, I guess. Rumoured to have the Cybermen in it. I don't know if that's true, but I don't think they're going to turn up till the finale. So I just don't think they will. I think I would like it if they didn't have the Cybermen next week. It's definitely Mary Shelley, definitely Frankenstein. Looks very Eternity Trap. So taking lots of elements from the Sarah Jane Adventures now, but it's still lovely to see it all come together. I think we definitely, there's a sense that the companions' stories are winding to a close. I think in Resolution, I could get that feeling that Ryan's story was coming to a close, and then it didn't, so it felt like a bit of a cop-out. So I think this Series 12 will have to have a make or break moment, and that make and break moment will be how it delivers the companions' exit, because I am more certain now than ever that they will leave, because I think it's unlikely. I think there's a chance that Graham might stay on as a, say, like Fraser Hines did, but I don't think Yaz and Ryan are going to stay. I think at this point they'll probably leave, and I think they've overstayed their welcome to maybe. I think Ryan and Graham maybe overstayed their welcome, just a little bit. I was kind of thinking that Ryan might leave at the end of the episode, because I think he feels like he's leaving his friends behind, and I think that was his fear, and I think he needs to leave now. He doesn't really have a story anymore. I think the story of Ryan and Graham very much was Series 11, and I think it would have been better if it had just been the Doctor and Yaz this series, but I think this episode is very good for talking about the issues and giving all the character development. So yeah, 8 out of 10. Next week, Villa Diotti, I guess, Mary Shelley, Frankenstein. I hope they don't do Cybermen. I really don't. I think it would be kind of disappointing if it was Cybermen, because the Cybermen, it's a 2-parter, so let them have their 2-parter. I like that they're subtly leading into the episode as well. But yeah, so next week, the haunting of Villa Diotti, next week on BBC One at 7:10. And thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and good night.